Acting Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, has visited the 8th Division of the Nigerian Army in Sokoto as part of efforts to combat the new terror group Lakurawa. Oluyede ordered the troop to crush the new terror group, which was reportedly inducing youths in the state into its fold. The defense headquarters had last week identified Lakurawa as a new terror group operating in Kebbi and Sokoto states. The Director of Defense Media Operation, Major General Edward Buba, said the terror group is affiliated with jihadi factions in Mali and Niger, raising security concerns in the northwestern region of the country. Well, we are now being joined by former spokesman of the Nigerian Army, Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired, to discuss how to curb the mutation of terror franchise or groups such as Lakurawa and also review the nation's strategy at dealing with terrorism and insecurity. Good to have you on Newsday. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on your program.
Good afternoon. Now, what would you say is responsible for the emergence of this new terror group? Do we blame the negligence of our security personnel for this?
I think quite a number of factors, and I don't think we should blame them. If you are following things, you will understand that there are a lot of conflicts elsewhere beyond the Nigerian shore that form the basis for what we are experiencing in this country. Take, for instance, if you are going to talk about this Lakurawa in particular, you look at the circumstances that brought about them being here. Remember, over time, the late Libyan leader had a private, so to speak, army beyond the Libyan army that he used to superintend even his country and other African countries. Now, with the crisis in Libya, these people, and he armed them to the teeth, and most of them, they were not even national of that country. Most of them, they came from North African part of the, of this continent, North Africa, and so they couldn't go back home, neither could they be in Libya. So to a large extent, they become, criminal elements with arms. Now, given what happened again, remember, we are dealing with issues of banditry and insurgency in this country. Banditry, particularly, and kidnappers in the northwestern part of the country. There were instances, actually, initially it started in Zamfara State, but to some extent spread to Sokoto and other parts of the country. And now it is as a result of the activities of these bandits that some people thought it wise that to checkmate it, they have to resort to self-help. And those are the kind of circumstances that brought about the Lakurawas way back in the last quarter of 2017. They were invited, but people hardly understand. Basically, you can look at it from two perspectives. They are nothing more than armed robbers and criminal elements that go about in the name of religion. Of course, given the internalization of violent extremism, by ISIS and what have you, they took advantage of these people and they came. And the easiest way to get into people is to kind of associate religion with the activities of such people. And people will confirm to you that their religious practices and interpretation of the religious books is at variance of what is obtainable in the proper Islamic perspective. So there are quite a number of factors, like I mentioned. Then, of course, there are those push and pulls. What are those push and what are those pulls? The push is the fact that if you look at the northwestern part of the country, particularly these two states, Sokoto and Zamfara in particular, you look at the level of illiteracy, you look at the level of negligence of even the border communities. And in fact, especially rural areas, most of them, they are vulnerable. And of course, the presence of porous border and of course, forest. And given again the relationship between our country and neighboring countries, given the fact again, there was a coup and there was kind of savory relationship between us and Niger Republic. So quite a number of factors. And coming back to what you are saying, I think the most important thing now that this thing has been brought to the front burner, I think the question is, what do we do to mitigate the activities of these people? Bearing in mind, actually, they have infiltrated the communities to the extent that there are intermarriages and they have advantage of mobility, arms, and the use of technology. So these are the things that should concern us, and I'm so happy, and I think we give kudos to the military, particularly the Air Force and the Army. look at the Chief of Army Staff, the acting Chief of Army Staff, he moved. And I know even before he went there, the military were there, particularly Air Force, they were, carrying out operations. And I know the Air Division and the newly established, Joint Task Force, they are also up and doing. So basically, I think it requires concerted effort and was most importantly, getting the buy-in of the people, particularly the affected community, to see so that we can be able to mitigate those pulling factors, offering better opportunities, because it is very difficult when you raise religion. What do you, because people, they said, well, they are talking about hereafter, but what do you have in alternative to all those things? I think these are things that should occupy our minds, and I'm so sure the security forces are ready to do what it takes, but they require the support and the cooperation of the society. But be it as it may, the government has a large and, has the most important role to play, by galvanizing the people, providing the resources needed to deal with this issue. And I think we should not be enemy-centric. To a large extent, we have neglected the people over time. And whatever solutions we are thinking of, we have to give the people a sense of belonging so that they will cooperate fully, that we can deal with it. Because more so, these people that are perpetrating these activities, they are all foreigners, mostly from either Mali, Algeria, or Niger Republic, as the case may be. You can easily identify them and pick them up. Despite the fact that they have intermingled with the society, there are intermarriages, and of course the fact that some of the youth of those parts are also members of this sect.
Now, very well said. There are reports that the terror group is currently recruiting using monetary incentives and in some cases force. How can this recruitment process be nipped in the bud?
You see, that is why I talked about the push and pull. Now, the push are those incentives that they are giving. And you know it and I know it. Border communities over time have been neglected, especially in this country. And so what are those things that need to be done? And apart from that, you look at the poverty index and what have you. And in fact, one of the local government in Zamfara State, I think it should be good in particular, that, Gadab in particular, I think the illiteracy level is almost 90%, whereas Tangada is almost 57%. So the starting point is to see how do you educate the people, enlighten them to understand actually the implication of that. But most importantly is to provide infrastructural development things. The local government takes, for instance, is just more or less like nominal. And we have to be sincere, because over time, if you look at it, 2017, 2018, there were pointers to these people, but we had government officials denying the existence of these people. Not till now they have come into, for the second missionary journey, to the extent of perpetrating the atrocities they have committed in Mera, in shifting to Kebbi State. So basically, these are the starting point. The most importantly is to improve good governance, give people sense of belonging. They will cooperate. Remember, even after their first coming, they realized that actually the Lakurawas, it was a mistake inviting them, and they made concerted effort to make sure that they mitigate them. So we build on that. And of course, most importantly, we have had instances of insurgency in this country, particularly in the Northeast. We started with faltering steps, but eventually we were able to perfect it to the extent that we have achieved the success we have achieved over time to this point. So what are those lessons? I think we should bring that to bear in dealing with this issue. But most importantly, it is beyond, talking about state and, local government and what have you, and the federal government. We also have to have constructive engagement with our neighboring countries. Look at the porous borders, and of course, by the time you chase them out of Nigeria, they might decide to relocate. But by the time they have blocking forces elsewhere and there is synergy of effort, you can be able to solve this problem.
Now, we heard in time past, that Boko Haram was collaborating with other terror groups in the region. So are you worried, that there might be some sort of collaboration between this new terror group and the one already existing, which is Boko Haram? Is there any way in which this collaboration can be prevented?
Possibly it could, because if you look at it way back 2016, Boko Haram sought partnership with ISIS. And eventually, this Lakurawa, there is every indication they are part of the ISIS in the Greater Sahel. So whoever is their sponsors, whoever is their sponsor, there is every likelihood he or they may decide to harmonize the effort of these people. So one should be worried. But come to think of it, there is every likelihood they are just criminal elements taking advantage of religion, just like the bandits and the kidnappers that we have in the northwestern part of the country. But possibly, again, there could be area of collaboration because of the abundance of mineral resources, because they tend to diversify, showing their true color that they are criminals, getting involved in illegal mining. Because basically, it is a question of acquisition of material resources. It has nothing to do with religious piety or what have you. So there is every likelihood they may become partners in crime in order to further popularize the people. But that notwithstanding, I think it's something that can easily be nipped in the bud so that we cannot even be able to reach that point where they will cooperate among themselves.
So as we wrap up, what steps do you think needs to be taken urgently at this point, to resolve this crisis?
I think steps have already started being taken. Take, for instance, I made reference to the fact that the acting chief of army staff was there on the ground, and he has interfaced not just with his troops, but also with the key stakeholders in that environment, talking about security forces and, of course, the people in the community. And I know at the background, a lot of effort is being made to have constructive engagement, because these people have been threatened. And I have made mention of the fact that the Lakurawas are taking advantage of the use of technology, because I was made to understand that they are well armed, and at the same time they use technology using drones to maintain surveillance on people. So people are reluctant to talk. So you have to guarantee the safety of the people, make them to talk, and I believe with collaboration and cooperation with the people, they can deal with it. More so, we have just seen a recent example in Mera. The people rose when they attacked when they attacked the Hada. The people rose against them, and there were collateral damage, on both sides. So if you mobilize the people and make them to be resilient, and I believe we can be able to solve this problem. So these are the starting point, but most importantly, to see how best we can protect the communities, to see how we can get their buy-in so that they can cooperate fully, and then we have to, whatever we are doing must be people-centric. Remember, it's so complex because there are issues of intermarriage, there are issues of people, being involved, the use of that groups, giving them incentives and what have you. So you have to deal with it because the issue of loyalty and what have you. But most importantly, giving people greater sense of belonging, especially the border communities that are vulnerable.
Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired, former spokesman, Nigerian Army, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.